Having just finished up Explorations in Consciousness by Frederick Aardema, I thought I'd share some of my closing thoughts on it. So I really liked the book. I actually liked it a lot more than I initially thought I would. This is my first ever book on the topic of OBEs, kind of like astral projection stuff, having purposely avoided anything on this topic up until this point, which got me thinking, like, why is that? And so these are the main two reasons. The first one is I just had so little faith in it actually being possible that I figured why bother. Especially when I was first getting into this space. I already had such a big stack of lucid dreaming related and Buddhist type books to go through that I just didn't have time to jump into one of these types of books. Especially with my time constraints are already so tight with family and work and hobbies and shit. In order for me to read a book, I actually got to push all that shit to the side, right? And then the second reason is there are just so many charlatans out there on both the lucid dreaming and OBE astral projection side, but I found it to be especially prominent on the OBE astral side of things. It just kind of, turned me off to the whole thing. Which brings me back around though to one of the things I liked so much about this book, and I really appreciated how Frederick kept a pretty middle path, right? Like he would present both sides of the argument, share his personal experiences, and then kind of wrap it up with his general view on things. But that same thing I liked about the book, I've heard other people criticize it for, where they wanted him to be more on the lucid dreaming side or the OBE astral side of things, right? Which he pretty much just left them hanging there, right? They want to know can you really interact with physical reality during an OBE or not? To which he basically just says, we don't know yet. We got to do more tests and studies on it. I also learned a lot from it. For example, Robert Monroe, I definitely knew of him to some degree, but I didn't know much of his work, and this book was a nice introduction to him. I liked all the discussions about the void, which read a lot to me, sleep yoga stuff. Now, it didn't sound exactly the same. Some things in there seemed off. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe they aren't the same thing. Granted, I don't really know that much about sleep yoga. I mean, I read about it in a couple different books. I've listened to Andrew Holacek talk a decent amount about it. But that's really it. And most of my deep dives into sleep yoga was years ago. So who knows how much I actually remember and remember accurately. It was also cool learning about the histories of the OBE, from the mystical and occult views on it to the contemporary approaches to the materialistic side of things. I found that particularly cool because now when I hear other people out there talking about OBEs or really whatever, it can give me a better understanding on which views they tend to hold and where they're coming from. And lastly, and this was really probably one of the most useful things I got out of it, honestly, is it forced me to confront a very clear bias I have towards the materialistic Western view on things. So this book was a good mental exercise, because there were certain parts during some of the chapters where I'm reading it thinking man, that's bullshit, or I disagree or whatever. But again, coming back around to Frederick being authentic and him coming off as credible to me and not seeming like a charlatan, is as I continued to read through it, I never felt burned at the end of the chapter when he always kind of brought it back around to that nice middle ground of, we really don't know the answers.